Okay, so welcome to our State of the Network session after a brief trouble getting started. And I'd like to welcome all our panelists who I'm very grateful agreed to participate from all three cities in the region and from the region of Waterloo. And so I think we'll get started with Lisa, and I'm just going to allow you now to share your screen, Lisa. Just one moment. Actually, what I'm going to do, Lisa, is I'm going to make you host, and then you'll have to hand it back to me afterwards, okay? There, you should be good to go, Lisa.
Right.
So Lisa and Sean are from Cambridge, and they're doing the first presentation.
Yeah.
Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, awesome. So yeah, I'm Lisa Chomnick. I'm from Cambridge. I'm the Sustainable Transportation Coordinator, and I'm joined with Shane Taylor, who is the city's landscape architect. And together we are the staff liaisons for the Cambridge Cycling and Trails Active Transportation Committee. So we'll just give a quick overview from on-road cycling and trails. So one of the biggest accomplishments in 2020 is our cycling master plan. It finally went forward. It got endorsed by our council on October 20th. So this is a big project we've been working on for quite some time. And it covered 5 key themes there of connections, integration, all seasons, promotion, and monitor. And the plan really looked at creating a system in the city that's suitable for all ages and abilities, so something that's safe, comfortable, and equitable to get around the city. So that was a really big accomplishment that happened this year. And then I just have a few photos here of just some bike shelters and bike repair stations that we're constantly trying to expand some end of trip facilities slowly throughout the city. Another item I just wanted to share was the just some counts that we have. So the one on the left here is the pedestrian bridge in downtown Galt, and I'm sure a lot of the cities saw spikes like this as well. So we had a 95% increase in movement over the pedestrian bridge. I do want to note that this isn't cycling specific movement, it's just counts in general. So it's a mix of pedestrians and cyclists, but the trend is probably all the same. So 95%, which is great over the pedestrian bridge. And then along one of our trails that goes near Blair area. So this experienced a 400% increase, which is quite huge. And I'll hand it to Shane for this one.
Yeah, so I chose to highlight a couple of projects that deal with maintenance and safety issues that we've had ongoing for a number of years. So these are 2 trails that are heavily used in our network by both pedestrians and by cyclists. And the top one here, the 401 underpass. So this is on the Mill Run Trail. It runs between the north end of the city in Hespeler and through to the Preston area in Riverside Park. It's a great trail. If you haven't used it, it's phenomenal. A number of years ago, the Highway 401 was expanded and the section of trail was closed for a long time. We previously had a boardwalk through here, and so anyone that used this space would have to slow down, get off their bike and walk through. And when MTO widened the highway, they paved a little section underneath the 401, but of course you want to take it a lot faster now. So we had a real issue with this one. On bright sunny days, if you're coming along on your bike or if you're running, getting underneath the overpass, it's pitch black. You can't see anything. You're blind for a moment. And we felt that was quite a safety issue. So we looked at a few different options. We looked at putting lights under the bridge, but the MTO wasn't interested in paying for the electricity for that. Then we looked at, could you put some solar lights up? The problem is the worst darkness was actually in the middle of the day. So that, without a chance for any solar lights to charge their batteries, we're sort of out of options with that one. So we thought about, and the solution we came up with was just paint, like pretty easy, really, putting outside lines and a middle line down the middle and a couple of arrows. And when we were installing that, we had a lot of feedback from the public about, lots of thumbs ups and high fives as we're installing this thing, saying, this is fantastic. What a simple solution. We also had quite a bit of washout in this little area here. So we did a bunch of regrading and a little bit more asphalt to solve that issue. So issue solved, not much money spent. Then this bottom one over here, we had a real issue with this section of trail. It runs adjacent to the Grand River, coming up to Fountain Street. And we typically get heavy rains washing out sections of the trail. The river often will rise up and wash out the trail. We're constantly doing maintenance. So we applied for a grant through Trans-Canada Trail, because this is part of that trail network. And we're able to lay down some asphalt and some safety measures along there to make that improvement.
Sorry, I lost myself there. Thanks, Shane. And then just looking on to 2021, just highlighting a couple projects here. So there's one project we worked on was Dunbar Road Multi-Use Trail. Worked on the design this year, 2020. And so this year, 2021, we will be doing construction. So this is a really wide road, and we're narrowing the entire road, so doing some traffic calming elements as well, and then putting in a multi-use trail. So phase one will be from concession to industrial in here that we'll construct, and then phase two is this section right in there. Another trail that we'll be working on is one in Hespeler, and this one runs, this is Guelph Ave. So it just runs behind through here along the river, and then it'll pop onto the road here, Boulevard Multi-Use Trail, and end on Winston Boulevard in here. So the design, we just started the design work last week. We just had the kickoff meeting. So that will be a fun project that we'll have to look forward for 2020, 2021, I keep saying 2020. And the construction will be either late 2021 or 2022. And then looking beyond 2021, like I mentioned, we just finished up our cycle master plan. So it's really great that it kind of laid the entire foundation out for us. It gave us a 5-year action plan. So there's quite a few things in there that we plan on doing. For example, we're updating our bicycle parking guidelines right now to include some indoor bike parking, working on a bunch of wayfinding signs. We're working on a tourism loop throughout the city. So there's just quite a lot of things, if you looked into our cycling master plan, of just some things that we're gonna try and work towards in the next 5 years.
All right, so I'm just going to talk about looking beyond 2021 as well. The city owns a big piece of land up in the north end of the town. It's actually a stormwater block, and it runs right around this industrial subdivision that's in the middle there. And so we're looking at an opportunity right now to make a complete off-road connection between the Hunt Club subdivision, which is off to the east there in purple, many homes that's just getting finished up right now, and a future subdivision that's just in the planning stages right now. We're calling them the east side lands. There's industrial, and then just to the north of that, there's going to be some residential as well. This little area of town, if you're not familiar with it, is really not great for cyclists. Maple Grove is heavy truck traffic, as is Fountain Street up in this area. This is Fountain and Maple Grove up by Toyota. To orient yourself, Toyota and the Loblaws Center up there. So we're looking at 2 kilometer long, completely off the road link between these two heavy truck traffic areas. So pretty excited about this. It's amazing, all this truck traffic and whatnot. You get into this space and behind these industrial buildings, and you just feel like you're out of the city. There's raptors flying around. There's some wet areas down in through there. So lots of animals, deer and foxes and all kinds of stuff. So it's just a fantastic little spot. So we're looking at getting this planned this year, and then starting construction next year, and hoping to tie in some pedestrian crossing points on Maple Grove and Fountain when the region's doing their road reconstructions as well. I'll move on to the next slide there, Lisa. And this is another really exciting one for us. So the image on the right-hand side was pulled from the cycling master plan. And what I've got shown on it is these blue networks are our proposed regional spines. So the major spines linking throughout the city. The blue dots are the 4 core areas. So one on the top right is Hespeler. And then in the middle of your screen is Preston. Off to the left of that is the Blair area. And at the bottom is downtown Cambridge in the Galt area. And as you can see, we're quite well connected when all these blue lines are in place between all the cores off-road. But where we're quite deficient, one of the major projects is that little area that's highlighted in red there with the arrow pointing to it. That connection doesn't exist yet. And so that's actually quite a major break in our network. Once that's in place, you'll be able to get between all 4 cores completely off-road, which is very exciting, of course. So we have an EA currently underway, and EA is basically making a decision based on science and the environment and consultation where crossing point could occur. So right now we're leaning towards one of those 3 areas, probably the northernmost. It's called Alt-1 in that little center area. We're proposing to put a new pedestrian bridge over the Speed River, tying in with the Bob McMullen Linear Trail, and then creating a new network link across lands that are actually owned by the Rare Rare Charitable Research Reserve, and then tying into multi-use trails on Fountain Street South. So like I said, fantastic link in the network. We're really excited to get it going. We're actually working quite closely with Cornell's group, Region, and I believe they're actually funding this phase of the project, and then design I think is on the cards for next year, and followed closely by construction, assuming everything goes according to plan. So yeah, this is probably the biggest one that we've had on the go for a long time, and of course we're very excited about it. I did neglect to mention as well, this ties in quite well with the connection over Highway 401 into Kitchener's city trails. So I'll hand it back to Lisa if you had any closing comments there, Lisa.
That's the end of the, oh, sorry. I hit stop share by accident, but I didn't have anything else. That was the end of it. I'm going to hand back there's 14 people in the waiting room. I'm too scared to let them in.
Okay, if you hand back host, I'll let them in.
Okay.
And if I can multitask for a moment, I'll say I'm really excited for the future of cycling in Cambridge. I actually really enjoy, as a cycling tourist, going down to Cambridge. It was wonderful this summer with the temporary bike lanes on Westmount. I could take a wonderful route all the way down. And more importantly, Tom Strickland has joined the Cycle WR steering committee now. So we finally have some good active representation from Cambridge. So I think
well, happy to be here.
We'll look forward to working with you closely, both Lisa and Shane. And meanwhile, I'm admitting a whole bunch of people from the waiting room.
Dorothy Hallman just died.
So unexpectedly, Jim?
Yeah. I'm just on a Zoom.
I had the TV on.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to mute you, Jim. Okay. So thank you very much, Lisa and Shane. And we have a whole bunch of people just joined us. So I will say a couple of words. We, of course, most of you are aware we had some nasty glitches on our original Zoom meeting. And so we restarted. We don't expect to have everyone, but we are recording the session, and we will figure out a way to do some online Q&A afterwards when we post the when we post the recorded. And I would remind everyone who's not presenting to please mute. And I will hand the host over to Darren to get started on Kitchener.
Actually, I think I'm going to go first.
Okay, Liz. Now I have to find Liz. We're getting enough people on the screen now that it's hard to find people. There we go. Okay, Liz, I will make you host.
All right. Well, more people are trying to get in. I'm just going to maybe ignore it or.
Actually, if I can reclaim host for a minute, I'll let them in. And I think that's it. So now I will. Okay, Liz, it's back to you.
Okay. All right, I will share my screen. Okay, my name is Liz Christensen and I'm the Trails Project Manager. I believe my title was written down as my previous job, but now I am, well, currently I'm the Trails Project Manager in our Parks Department. So some of our accomplishments, so I'm going to talk about the off-road trails and Darren will talk about on-road. So some of our accomplishments in 2020 where we had our Cycling and Trails Master Plan approved by Council one day before Cambridge, I'm going to add. We created a new multi-use trail through Bud Park that connected the two trails, or the trail along Homer Watson, so filling in that gap. And then we've also created a wayfinding plan for the Iron Horse Trail, which is to be installed this spring. So our Cycling and Trails Master Plan, we've been working on this for about 2 years now, and with COVID hit, it kind of got put on halt with the rest of the world. So we finally got it approved, and I'll just go through some of the highlights of that plan. So with this, I can't read all of my, sorry, oh gosh. So the vision, I can't read the vision because I can't see it. There's too much stuff on the screen of it, so I apologize. Some of our goals were to build more connections, to make the experience safe and high quality, and to create a culture of active living. Within that, we had 3 overarching themes, which were connections, experience, and culture. And we broke the themes down into some strategies, which you can see on the screen. You can also read more about them on our website. So connections focuses on connecting on-street cycling and off-street trails as a way of connecting the neighborhoods and people and destinations. So we had the 3 C's, which is comfortable, connected, and complete. So comfortable focuses on developing our all ages and abilities network. Connecting, this includes our City Spine network that provides a high quality and direct connection to all major destinations, such as commercial areas, parks, and schools. And then the plan is complete by ensuring that most residents of Kitchener are within a 400-meter designated cycling route or trail. So experience focuses on a safe and high quality experience that connects you through cycling routes and trails as easy and stress-free and seamless as possible. So within that, you'll see that we have a high quality bike parking, implement service standards for maintenance, an inspection program, implement the wayfinding strategy, continue to update the network map, and to ensure that new development elements are designed to accommodate walking, rolling, and cycling. So culture, this is, we wanted to create a culture of active living, a means of education and raise awareness for cycling routes and trails. We want to educate all road users and new cycling and trail infrastructure, and educate and encourage to use cycling routes and trails, and develop a data collection and monitoring program. So what's happening in 2021, we're going to upgrade the Trainer Ave Trail is what we're calling it. It's the trail from Cortland to Wilson that follows along the LRT tracks. We're going to upgrade the Stone Dust Trail to a multi-use trail that will be year-round maintenance, maintained. The Walter Bean Trail we're working right now with hiring a consultant to fix the trail that is designated right now as a hiking trail. So we're going to upgrade that. I can't tell you exactly what the surface will be because that is part of the design, but we're hoping that it can be something that can withstand ice flows and what's damaging the trail right now. Construction, we're looking at between 2022 and 2024. And then we created an Iron Horse Trail wayfinding. So starting from Union Street all the way to Ottawa, you can see what some of the signs will look like. We'll have directional arrows in 2 different forms. So we're very excited to get that going, and we're hoping to have that start installation this spring. Also applied for stimulus funding. And with that funding, we're looking at upgrading 2.7 kilometers of stone dust trails to multi-use trails. The trails that we have slotted to get done are Fisher-Hallman to Lawrence. So from Fisher-Hallman to Westmount, Westmount to Lawrence, we're looking to upgrade those to multi-use trails. And then from Kingsway Drive down through Wilson Park to Vanier, we're looking at doing those as well. And we have 4 new pedestrian bridges going in. So we're replacing one at Victoria Park, one at Vanier Park, Lynn Valley Park, and then there's a bridge at Rossay that takes you from Rossay Ave over to Victoria Street. And then what we have coming up for passes, I don't have a slide for it, but what we have next coming up is, I'm just gonna stop sharing that. I don't know how to get out of this. Sorry. I don't know how to stop sharing my screen. There we go. Okay, sorry. So in the future, we have about a kilometer, on average for the next 10 years, about a kilometer of trail that we're looking to upgrade. And that was what we determined through the Cycling and Trails Master Plan. We created a capital forecast. So on average, we have about a kilometer of trails to upgrade in the next 10 years. So with that, I'll pass it over to Darren.
Thank you, Liz. David, if you don't mind giving me hosting abilities, I'll share my screen as well.
Yes, I will do that. I was on mute. There you go.
Okay, and I'm just going to mute a couple of folks that, oh, it doesn't look like I can mute them. Mute, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. So as Liz mentioned, I'll be speaking to the on-road pieces, and a shameless plug here. If you do want to stay connected to what we're doing with at Kitchener, please subscribe to the Bike Kitchener newsletter at bikekitchener.ca. So our 2020 accomplishments. With COVID hitting, we quickly pivoted to a number of projects. Slow Streets was one of them. And all of these streets were selected because they are future potentials for neighborhood bikeways. So kind of your quiet streets that would have some enhanced wayfinding and traffic calming. And I think it set a nice example for what our streets can look like moving forward. So we'll be looking at upgrading some of those streets in the coming years. We converted a number of street patios. I hope you got to a lot of them before we couldn't go outside anymore. They were a lot of fun, and hopefully some of those will be coming back again next year. Bike lanes were installed on Krug Street, Franklin Avenue, and Sterling Avenue. These filled some pretty important gaps in the network. And so we were happy to get those in as quick order once COVID kind of lifted. Also under construction is Wilson Avenue Boulevard. There's a new multi-use trail in the boulevard there. It's not quite done yet. It needs one more layer of asphalt. So it is there, but won't be winter maintained until next year once it's officially done construction. So if you're going to check it out now, probably is covered in snow, but definitely something that will be available soon. David Berge Drive Boulevard multi-use trail was also installed, kind of out in the suburb of the west of the city. And it's a nice little connection, ties into the Ottawa Street multi-use trails that the region has. So really kind of help to feed into that system. If you've been down to Strasbourg and Huron, you've seen our bright green paint for what we're calling a Dutch-inspired roundabout. It's not exactly how the Dutch would design it, but it is inspired by the Dutch. So there's essentially a green strip of paint around the boulevard of the roundabout, and every leg of the roundabout has multi-use trails now. So it provides a nice designated space for cycling and separates pedestrians from cyclists around it too, which is nice. You'll notice in those signs, there's a bikes yield to cars sign. That's not our preference, but we aren't legally able to provide a cross ride through an intersection with a pedestrian crossover. So that's a piece that certainly if you're thinking about some provincial advocacy, that would be a great thing to do. It doesn't look like that's going to be changing anytime soon. So for now, it will be a bikes yield to cars, but whenever that legislation changes, we would be looking to convert that to a cross ride, and that would then grant the legal right of way to cyclists crossing there. I would say that when it opened, I kind of did a few loops myself just to see what it would be like. Cars more or less yielded the same way that they would if I was a pedestrian. So not perfect compliance, but definitely kind of similar to a pedestrian. I'll also mention that if you do want the right of way, you can dismount your bike and walk it through the crosswalk. So there is an option there as well. We installed 2 new secure bike parking facilities downtown, Kitchener Market and Duke in Ontario. To me, the Kitchener Market one is kind of a game changer because we really didn't have any secure bike parking on the east end of downtown. So between our 5 facilities, we've really started to cover off the downtown, and we are expecting to have the King Victoria Transit Hub have secure bike parking, likely integrated with our system. So then you have 6 from kind of really spanning the whole downtown. So we're really excited about that because we do hear quite regularly that bike theft is one of the deterrents for going downtown, and we think this is a nice solution. So if you haven't signed up for secure bike parking, do check out our website, bikekitchener.ca, and you can sign up for a pass there. And then the biggest and most significant piece was the Kitchener Downtown Cycling Grid. So I'll share a little bit about that. As you've seen, there's lots of construction happening downtown right now. We're expecting 5,000 new residents. And this downtown cycling grid is really that missing piece in our transportation network downtown, the LRT obviously being a huge component. It's a pretty walkable downtown already, but we don't have that safe cycling network. And we're hoping that with all these new residents coming downtown, they'll choose not to bring a car because they have such a great cycling or transportation choice. So this is what the grid network will look like. The purple are separated bike lanes. That's really the spine of the downtown grid. And then we've got some neighborhood bikeways. So those are kind of your quieter streets through some of the light blue there. We're also going to be chipping away at the Transit Hub Trail. So Stewart Street and Joseph Street in the teal there are part of our street reconstruction. So those won't happen this coming construction year, but they are the year following. So you may see a bit about consultations on that. But the intention is that there would be a boulevard multi-use trail on both Stewart and Joseph that would connect that to those Transit Hub Trail pieces and really kind of continue that trail connection from the Iron Horse Trail. So we're excited about that one as well. We will have some consultations with the region and probably with the public as well to look at whether or not we can fill in this Duke Street piece. But for now, we'll build some of the other components of the grid and look at that in the future. So this is what the bike lanes will look like. They're bi-directional on one side of the street. Where we can, we fit in some on-street bike parking as well. So those are intended to eventually become bike share stations. Essentially creating the capacity for that to happen in the future. Neighborhood bikeways, as I mentioned, are quiet local streets. They don't have designated facilities for cycling, but if they don't hit specific volume or speed thresholds, then we do what we can to get those volumes and speeds down. So things like diverters that force cars to take a specific turn, and that essentially reduces all cut-through traffic. So only people that live on that street would be there. And so we'll have a few of those different treatments happening as well. It is a 3-year phasing approach. It's a pretty significant capital project, the most we've ever spent on a single cycling project before. And so we did need to phase that out over 3 years. So to let you know what's coming in this coming construction season, so hopefully starting in May, Joseph Street, the entire leg of Joseph Street. Water Street. Water Street is really exciting because it connects into Victoria Park and the Iron Horse Trail. And at the other end, Spurline Trail connection going along Weaver Street as well. Cedar Street as well will be this summer, and that connects us right directly into an LRT station. So we're excited about making that connection. And then pretty much all of those neighborhood bikeways that I mentioned and shown on the map will be installed this summer as well. So the main features of a neighborhood bikeway are those traffic diversion elements. And then also things like directional sharrows. So we still will use sharrows. The reason we use sharrows on quiet streets are for wayfinding, and that they also come with them a 40-kilometer speed limit. So it's worth having the sharrows there. So you get that reduced speed limit. And then we'd also have some enhanced wayfinding signage to really make it clear that this is a route for cycling. That would include Lancaster Street. So we'll have some traffic diversion on there. So if you're used to driving on Lancaster Street, expect some big changes there. You won't be able to access it from Krug Street. Chapel Street will also be a neighborhood bikeway that will see this traffic diversion here. So if you live in the Central Frederick neighborhood, there'll be some changes to your traffic patterns. But the good news is pretty much all cut through traffic through Central Frederick will be eliminated. So that's kind of what it looks like on a map in terms of what will be built in 2021. So it is more than half of the network being built this year. And then we'll have Ontario Street and Margaret Street and Otto Street the following year. And then the third year is the Duke Street corridor. And hopefully we'll have something in place with the region through that missing link that we have there. So you may see some engagement coming this year on the Duke Street piece, as I mentioned, as well as Ontario Street between King and Duke, just a single block on Ontario Street. We needed to do some further engagement with the businesses there because they were concerned about the proposal that we had. So hopefully we can still find a solution there.
For a liquor store to open, I wanted to get some champagne.
I'll
get it tomorrow. I'll get it tomorrow. We'll drink
See
it
who
tomorrow.
I can unmute here.
With all this job.
I know we're gonna.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get the right screen here so I can see all my participants. Who needs to be muted? I'm gonna mute. Okay, I think we got everybody muted again. So other projects happening in 2021. The majority of our funding for the downtown grid or for our cycling on road is going to the downtown grid for the next 3 years. So you won't see much other than through street reconstructions or kind of some minor spot fixes here and there. But there are some exciting reconstructions that we do have on the docket for this year, including Delta Street. This is a street that is essentially redundant. It doesn't serve any purpose. There was one way that's no longer going to be used once it's redeveloped. So why keep it as a road? Let's just change it into a trail. So we're going to rip up Delta Street, replace the underground services that need to be serviced, and then convert it into a trail. And then to complete the little gap to Nyberg, which is the end of the Iron Horse Trail, we'll also be building a multi-use trail in the boulevard of Sydney Street. Mill Street is getting reconstructed. The final phase of that will be happening this year, and the final asphalt layer will have bike lanes on it. Sterling Avenue and the south end of it will also be adding some bike lanes there. And in both cases, we have some new intersection treatments. So Mill and Sterling will see our first 2-stage Q box. That's on the right there. And then Sterling at Mauser, we're actually going to pull the bike lane out of the road entirely, get it into a boulevard facility, and that will add a much better crossing experience through some of the turning movements there. The city is also looking at developing a Vision Zero strategy. So we had some consultations later last fall, and there'll probably be another phase of consultations this year. And we're hoping to get that to council kind of late fall of this year. If you aren't already riding on Queens Belmont separated bike lanes, please do take a look at those. They are being winter maintained. And we are continuing to collect data on those and are expecting to report back to council at the end of this year. So we're really hoping for some continuing growth. So far our numbers are growing. but they are starting at a pretty low spot. So the total volume doesn't seem really exciting quite yet, but certainly the percentages are looking great. And if we continue to see that growth, I think we're in a good spot for those. So I'll end it there, and I'll pass back the hosting to David.
Can I sneak a question in, or are we not?
I'll leave that up to David.
Yes, Rebecca, if it's a quick question, otherwise we're going to hold the questions till the end, but
Oh, I'm easy. The end?
Yeah, after the Waterloo and region presentations.
Yep.
So hold your thoughts, and I'll just do a little housekeeping here while I've got hosting privileges. And Louise, will you be starting next?
Yes, I will. Myself and Chris Hodgson are here from the city. I don't have a very fancy presentation, but I have some pictures and stuff that I can show.
Okay, I'm going to hand over hosting to you, Liz, and if you can hand it back to me when you're done.
Yep.
So Louise, I was getting confused with Liz Christensen from Kitchener for a moment. Louise and Chris Hodgson from City of Waterloo. And you should be good to go.
Sorry, there we go. There we go. So like I said, I apologize. I don't have anything super fancy. My name is Louise Finley, and I'm a project manager with the City of Waterloo. And I'm joined tonight with my manager, which I would have to say is maybe one of our first major accomplishments for 2020 was Chris was the appropriate candidate for the manager's position, which had been vacant since Phil Hewitson. Well, Chris was backfilling that job for almost a year, and then he was able to get that. So one of our first accomplishments for the City of Waterloo, I would say, is the bike shelter that was constructed at the Willis Way Ion Station. And this is one of our first covered shelters. What's pretty unique on this one is this was actually we took over 2 parking stalls and there was a tree and kind of this weird grass area. So we cleared all of that out, put the concrete slab in, and we put this shelter in. It holds 16 bikes, and we do have a fix-it station with air pump at this facility as well. So if you've gone uptown and you've seen it, then that's great. The next section that we feel that is pretty amazing is up in our industrial area. Through our annual contract, we receive funding every year to do infill sidewalks and multi-use paths. Multi-use path is a new term that the City of Waterloo is using from our transportation master plan. So we're trying to use that terminology more frequently. And the multi-use path is actually, we've made the full connection around Colby Drive now. So that's from Northfield all the way around to Wideman. That's the orange line that you see on there is all multi-use path. And we started this section off in 2018 with a sidewalk coming around, but now we've made that lovely connection with multi-use trail. We will continue the multi-use trail going south down Conestoga and out to King Street. There's a section of trail that we will be linking that to. So you will see that coming this year or next, I believe. In addition, another major accomplishment this year was changing the sidewalk on Lexington to a multi-use trail. So our 4-well trail now continues along. You can get off at Lexington, and this is a great connection all the way across to Davenport, Obviously, if you continue on Lexington, you would be on road, but that is all the way out to University. So this was a piece missing that we did the over the 85 highway 3 years ago. And so this was the last piece of this connection to make it back down to the four-wheel trail. In addition, we also updated our cycling map. That was another accomplishment, and it is available online as well. For 2021, what we are hoping to achieve, we've got some major projects coming through. And the first one I want to say, because I think most of you have been aware of it, Farmers Market Phase 2. Farmers Market Phase 1 is a joint venture between the Region of Waterloo, Township of Woolwich, and the City of Waterloo. And that goes from Northfield all the way up to the St. Jacobs Farmers Market. And I don't want to speak to that because that's one of the region's projects. But the Phase 2 of the project is from Northfield all the way down to Behringer, which connects to an existing multi-use trail. And we call this Farmers Market Phase 2. And this has gone through design, gone through consultation, and we are excited to announce that we will be going ahead with construction of this multi-use trail this year. This will be, we do hope to light these trails as well. That is something that we have found from our transportation master plan, that we do need to do that. In addition, there is the Laurelwood multi-use trail. This will run on the north side of Laurelwood between Fisher Hallman and Beaver Creek Road. So it's adjacent to the GRC lands. And this too will be lit and winter maintained along this section. This is just the first start of a connecting loop that we will do around the GRCA land. So it will go up Beaver Creek to conservation, and then down, and then we'll connect to the Westmount multi-use path there. So we'll be making those connections as the year, as we continue on. In addition, I don't have an image of this, so I do apologize. Phillip Street connection. This is a connection at the Ion Station. We're proposing a multi-use path between Albert Street and Columbia, and it will be on the opposite side to the Ion Station, but it'll be a multi-use path that goes all the way along, and then that can connect you to the Ion Station at the RMT Park. Further out, there we go. Further out, there will be the implementation of the Transportation Master Plan, and I'm going to give a little plug here right now. We are in the last stage of the Transportation Master Plan, and we are looking for some engagement that's on Engage Waterloo, and just some feedback on kind of that last stage of the Transportation Master Plan. And we have some things that we are working with the region and area municipalities. So I'm just going to leave that for Mike and for Cornell to speak to. And if there's anything missing from that, we'll kind of chime in. And Chris, did I miss any of that? Or did you want to chime in? You're good? Okay. And that's about it for us.
Thanks so much, Louise. As a Waterloo resident, I'm pretty excited about some of these projects. One of the things I'm loving as we go through this is all three presentations from the three cities. A lot of word of the use connection, which is so vital, right? We've had so many projects that didn't connect. And also, I think all three of you have mentioned working with the region. So I think that's a great segue to Mike Henderson. I'm just trying to find you on my screen, Mike, so that I can hand over.
I don't need, David, I don't have, I'm a fairly late addition to this
Okay.
meeting, so I don't have a presentation, but I wanted to, as discussed, I'm basically here subsequent to a meeting with myself and one of my coworkers, meeting with David and Tom to discuss the region's 10-year capital program. And as some of you know, Emily, and certainly our counselors know, what we've been doing over the last, I think, 3 years, in addition to the preparation of the capital plan, we've been putting together or parsing out, if you will, in kind of a similar manner, the active transportation component of the transportation capital plan. So we've provided that to David at Cycle Waterloo Region, so that they could digest it a little bit. And we had what I thought was a really fruitful conversation about the region's approach to the TCP. So I'll summarize it a little bit. I don't know if I can talk briefly about some of the accomplishments in 19 and 20 that the region has made, but overall, the region's transportation capital forecast represents about $905 million over a 10-year period. So it's quite a substantial program. The program itself is kind of divided into really two parts. One, kind of the base or reconstruction efforts, and the other, kind of the expansion efforts, where we're widening roads and building new roads. Kind of a $300 million split, if you will, something in that order. 300 million being on the expansion side. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're spending on active transportation. So the sum total of it is about $124 million. But the conversation I had with, so it represents about 14% of our overall program. But the conversation that I had with David and Tom, I think, is an important one for a lot of members of the Cycle Waterloo Region to hear. These are estimates, because the regional projects are usually quite large. They're based on road condition, bridge condition, underground infrastructure condition. The EA process, the environmental assessment process that each project has to go through the region, is quite extensive. And so a lot of the facilities aren't completely nailed down with a detailed cost estimate or even a design outside of sort of the 3 to 4 year range. So the back, 6 to 7 years of the program, we're making educated assumptions on the types of facilities that will go in there. To use an example, our base program is divided into sort of reconstruction, rural rehab, and urban rehab. So what we've tried to do is make educated guesses, very conservatively, about the types of cycling facilities that would go into these types of projects. Obviously, in the rural roads, we're building mostly wider shoulders on-road facilities. In the urban sections, we're now leaning towards building, as much as we can, MUTs and separated facilities. And that's going to vary project to project. So we've got benchmark costing for, really the three main types of facilities from the region's perspective, which is a typical on-road facility, some sort of a separated facility, and then MUTs. We're finding lately that the direction has been to go, from a lot of perspectives, the direction has been to go towards building MUTs where we can, multi-use trails, or as they're also referred to, multi-use paths, MUPs. We're finding that there's some advantages, wholesale advantages to building those types of facilities, both with safety, perceived safety, and enhanced use. But it's a bit of an evolution. And again, David and Tom and I talked about this at length. Every project, again, outside of that sort of 3 year range, is going to be an educated guess. So it's very likely that those dollars, the portion of 14% of the capital plan that is currently allocated to cycling, will in fact go up. We're not currently accounting for land costs we are accounting for them in the project, but we're not accounting for them if they're directly attributed to the cycling facility, which in many cases for an on-road separated facility where you're widening the road, they're directly, land costs are directly attributed to the cycling facility being built. I can tell you there's a keenness at the region of Waterloo, where a lot of us are avid cyclists. There's a keenness to build a connected network, and listening to Louise, listening to Louise, listening to Cambridge. The region seems to be, in some cases, a bit of a stumbling block for these connections. It's not that, certainly not that we're trying to be difficult. There are, I would say, some more significant challenges on some of the regional roads in building what I would call an ideal facility. So we are working towards that. We have obviously learned a lot in the past couple of years with our temporary reallocation of road space project during COVID, with the flexible bollards that are now in place on University Avenue. We're starting to learn about some of the maintenance challenges and cost challenges with the flexible bollards. But I can tell you that a very significant improvement is coming on University Avenue in 2023, which is our next big project in downtown Waterloo, adjacent the front of the universities, which will very nicely dovetail into some of the good work that the region and the city of Waterloo's done on the University Avenue Gateway study, where we'll be providing some I think some pretty slick cycling facilities, sort of a cycle track, in addition to nice wide sidewalks, 1.8 to 2.1 meter sidewalks from Weber Street all the way up to Albert Street. There are several other locations where we're looking at trying to be as innovative as we can and trying to take away some of those connection challenges. We are working with each one of the area municipalities, either through Cornell or myself or the project managers. One of the results of the conversation that we had, myself and Jim Ellerman, who is my capital supervisor, was that we felt it would be constructive moving forward to actually have an engaged working group that would meet quarterly to discuss the transportation capital plans development on an annual basis from a regional perspective, to sort of bring you guys a little bit into the process, the challenges that we have in putting together the program and building the cycling facilities and filling in those missing connections. We do have a list. I got it probably a couple of years ago, Emily, maybe 2018, early 2019, that outlined some of the connection issues that Emily had I guess pointed out. I think most of those were centered in the Kitchener area, but we are looking at working with all the area municipal partners to try to figure out, how we can, if we can, address those connection issues. Some we can, some we can't. Some will be addressed through projects already identified in the 10-year capital program. Some will be addressed by projects that are identified in the master plan, and some will be projects that we may have to add to. We have several kind of annual programs that run sort of miscellaneous programs in urban and rural areas to do essentially infill for cycling facilities and pedestrian facilities. So it's an exciting time, because I feel like we're starting to kind of all row the same direction, which is a great thing. And what we wanted to try to accomplish with this group is to come up with a pretty solid agenda on a quarterly basis, at least to start with, talk about some of the design issues, some of the design challenges the region's having when we're looking at multimodal corridors and the needs for heavy trucks, buses, pedestrians, turning movements. So the challenges are not without solutions. We're working towards them, and I think we've done a good job of that in the last few years. But we wanted to kind of look at some of those design issues. We wanted to look at some of the ongoing maintenance issues that exist. One of the issues we have concerns with building multi-use trails is in some cases the driveway frequency adjacent to the multi-use trails. There's drainage issues. There are, in fact, maintenance issues in the wintertime. In some cases, we need to come up with pretty clear maintenance agreements with our area municipal partners about how those facilities are going to be maintained, whether it's going to be one pass with the bombardier and have a nice 3-meter wide asphalt multi-use trail that has, maybe a meter or 1.2 plowed, doesn't maybe work as intended through some of the winter months. So, we're finding challenges with winter maintenance, with the flexible bollards and the separated cycling facilities. At least on University Avenue to start with, the cost for maintaining those, at least during the pilot phase so far, has been 10 times the amount that it is to maintain an on-road facility and or a multi-use trail. So you can see from a maintenance perspective, a design perspective, there's some advantages to going to the multi-use trail. We have to do some education. We have to do some put some thought into how and when we're building each type of facility, because at the end of the day, our master plan, and Cornell will talk about this a little bit perhaps, but our master plan indicates that our mode share for cyclists, our mode share for GRT ridership, our mode share for pedestrians, we all have some pretty lofty goals here. And at the end of the day, just speaking as a cyclist, not as an engineering person, we have to keep building facilities that people are comfortable riding on. And the challenge on regional roads is we carry a lot of traffic and a lot of big traffic. So that's our challenge. But the future direction is to share this TCP process with you guys early. As I said, we've got quite a detailed spreadsheet that I provided to Cycle Waterloo Region, I provided to Regional Council, so that we can have a better idea of what we're actually spending. So again, it's 124 of the $905 million. And I think that number will likely go up when we begin to account for some of the missing things that we're really not tracking very well. Things like pedestrian islands and bus pads. All of those things are associated with active transportation. We're looking at we've been challenged a lot recently by the city of Waterloo and some of the ideas that they have for branding the corridor of University Avenue. A lot of really great ideas. We're challenged by financial constraints. We're challenged by it being a multimodal use corridor, turning lanes, bike lanes, lots of conflict. So we're trying to do maybe not the most expeditious thing, but the right thing. So I think we're on the right track. We've certainly hired a good manager of our planning group now. And we were starting to hire some active transportation engineers that will be more focused on getting the nitty-gritty stuff done, getting the mapping, figuring out where all those connection issues are, figuring out whether we're covering the capital program or in the annual programs, or if our area municipal partners are covering them. We've done some great things with. We paid for the multi-use trail Homer Watson through the Ontario Municipal Commuter Cycling Fund. So that was totally paid for by the province, which is a good news story. We have made application through the province to kind of look at that missing link. Liz Christensen and I still have some work to do on kind of the missing link between, it parallels Cortland, which is where the ION is running, and we did have plans to build a cycling facility there with ION there. We're moving it through Peter Holman Ball-Yard to connect up into Wabanaki. It's one of an important connection that's kind of missing at this point for the Trans-Canada Trail in that section. So, we're aware of where the challenges are on regional roads. We're beginning to improve connectivity with all the area municipal connections. We've done a lot of work with the city of Kitchener in downtown Kitchener as well to try to be as flexible as we can be with the challenges we have. So I just want to say there's lots of good stuff happening, but we're going to be I think a little more transparent, not that we haven't been transparent, but a little more inclusive in the preparation of our 10-year capital forecast to try to get some feedback from the community as well, as the area municipalities as stakeholders. So we're going to move forward with this committee, and hopefully we can make some great changes in the next couple of years to come. Just to summarize, I know David will probably run too long, but I just looked up some stats. In 19 and 20, we built almost 27 kilometers of multi-use trail, about another 25 of sidewalk, and then another almost 40 kilometers of bike lanes, either on road or separated. So we're building a lot, and know that there's challenges with crossing points on Northfield over the MTO structures. We're working with the MTO to get rid of the direct tapers and look at alternative solutions with an even higher order of government. The MTO has been pretty inflexible, but in the last couple of years, they're starting to come around as well. So we are working with all the partners to try to improve the connectivity issues. We're not there yet, but we're going to get there. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Thanks so much, Mike. You know, from working with all the cities and with you and Cornell in the region, I'm fully confident that we're on the right path, and certainly all the people on this call, you know, are on our side. We're allies in getting there, and I would include in that the two councillors that we have from the region, Tom Galloway and Jim Erb, who've been great allies. By the way, am I missing out on any councillors from other municipalities when I mention it? I notice Jeff Henry. Yes, Jeff has also been a great ally. So, you know, I think one of the key things that we can do as a community is help the folks on this call to learn, you know, our pain points and help to prioritize the work going forward. We can't always prioritize, you know, the coming year, because that's always that's often already committed, but future years beyond 1 year, I think we can have a significant influence over. So with that, I will open it to questions, and you can either raise your hand and ask the question. I'll be flipping back between two screens to try and catch everyone in turn. Or you can ask it in the chat, and I'll either ask you to ask the question yourself when I see it, or I will ask it myself on your behalf. So Josh is telling me the chat is disabled. I'm not actually seeing that myself, but I guess that's because I'm host. Okay, so we'll just go with the raised hand. So Rebecca, you have the first question. Just remind everyone to unmute for the question and then remute when you've finished your question. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, good presentations. I just wanted to go back to, I think it was Darren with the city of Kitchener. And you mentioned a roundabout, I don't remember where, Strasbourg, I think, where bikes would have priority crossing. And I was just wondering if that's the first of its kind in the region in Kitchener. Like, I know a lot of our crossings are still car priority. And so is that the first of its kind? I'm just curious.
It's definitely the first in the region to have the kind of the green lip around the outside. And as far as we know, it's the first in Canada. We haven't yet seen anyone else that's trying to kind of push the envelope on this. So
cool.
We're pretty pleased about that, and we'll probably be looking to kind of that story a little bit more moving forward once we see how it operates.
Amazing.
Can I just make a correction? There is no bike priority there.
Yeah, so that, I mean, thanks, Cornell. It's an important piece that is unfortunate. So bikes don't have the right of way. They still need to yield to cars, but we've made it a lot more intuitive for where bikes should ride around that roundabout. And we hope that in the future we'll have the provincial legislation ability to give bikes the right of way the same way that pedestrians do.
Cool. I have a follow-up question, but that kind of took care of it. Was I imagine there would need to be some kind of plan about reframing mindsets of drivers, but it sounds like that comes, you kind of alluded to it there, that would come along with the next phase where bikes actually have priority. As it is now, it would just be respecting bikes the way we should.
Yeah, and I think that's partially why we call it a Dutch inspired roundabout, because we pulled some elements from how the Dutch approach it, but they would also have very clear design that dictates how vehicles are to kind of operate. And so we didn't really do anything that changed the function for vehicles. They still have pretty wide turns and kind of the ability to go through there pretty quickly. So I think that would probably be the next evolution in a roundabout design. If we were to kind of start from scratch, it would be pretty expensive to rebuild that one more so, but I think that's kind of where the next evolution might come.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. The next person with their hand raised is Tom Strickland.
Thanks. I just wondered, there's a lot of really good things happening in the next 5 years. I've been looking at a lot of the budget, and particularly thanks to Mike for supplying a great detail on the region. But it's really hard for people to see that based on what we have in terms of like the cycling master plan. For example, the Cambridge one has a map of what it's going to look like in 20 years. And I was wondering if it was possible to get something to be a little more short-term focused that people could get really excited about, like what's going to happen in the next 5 years with the city and the regional plans if they all get completed. I think people get a lot more excited about that. And frankly, for me, in 20 years, I probably won't be cycling. I'm that old. So 5 years is a lot more exciting to me. And it would be good to really understand what's going to happen and get really excited about that.
From the region's perspective, Tom, we are going to put together sort of a map that would highlight the next 5 to 10 years in terms of the expected facilities and where they'd be located. So we are working towards that.
Yeah, the thing is, right now, kind of there's city stuff and region stuff. I think the cities probably should be putting this on their website with both of them in there, because there's a gap that maybe you think it's a gap, but it's not a gap because the region's going to do something.
That's one of the things that that I wanted to kind of change about even the capital planning maps that we're putting out, to kind of integrate those maps and share them on our website. So we're moving in that direction, in addition to the AT facilities, whether we do it over the next 5 years, because those projects are more kind of nailed down in terms of the EA and the design. But yeah, we're working toward that end. That'll be something that we'll pull together probably this year.
So I can add to that with our new cycling and trails master plan. We broke the master plan was written for a long-term plan, but we broke it down into immediate, short-term, medium, and long-term. So our immediate plan is the downtown grid, which is 1 to 3 years. And then we have a short-term. So the master plan, after 10 years, the master plan becomes fairly obsolete, old. You need to revisit it. So our plan is to build the master plan in the short term. That's our focus right now, is in those 10 years. So in our plan, you can see what it costs and how much money we'll put in for the next 10 years and what will get built. So in the maps, there's color coded for short term, long term. Now it doesn't prioritize it on what comes in what year. We just know that in those 10 years, this is what's happening. But between Darren and I, we've been working together to connect the on-road and the off-road together in the short term, so that we're not building gaps. We're making sure that those connections are done together in that short term. So you can see that. It's on our website. If you look under Kitchener Cycling and Trails Master Plan, you'll see a breakdown of the cost.
And Cambridge has some of that too, but I mean, even now, kind of a year or two after it was kind of put together, there are significant differences. Some good and some bad from the original plan. I was thinking more in terms of what's in the budget, because that's clear, that's budgeted, that's planned for, and potentially effectively paid for.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tom. Like the capital plans change each year. There can be deferrals based on funding, based on construction projects. So we put together a transportation capital plan map annually, because there's change with progress, there's change with budgeting and financing. So, what Liz is saying is that there's obviously a master plan available, so you can see what is planned. What we're trying to do is to maybe show what's underway as well, in addition to what Liz is doing.
Okay, thank you. I think I saw Mike, iPhone Mike, that you were wanting to ask a question.
Hi, thanks, David. It's Mike Jarman from Guelph Coalition for Active Transportation in Guelph.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. We did actually meet before, but you probably don't remember. But anyway, I was particularly interested in Mike Henderson's comments on the sharing of information and priorities with your group in particular. And we have actually, I've actually just requested from our staff at City Hall, Jennifer, just who may be on this call as well, for a similar sort of consultation with our group, like our GCAT group and maybe other stakeholders. And I'm just wondering from Mike's perspective, how important is this sort of input from the people who actually ride these trails and walk these sidewalks to the outcome of a transportation master plan, which we are undergoing right now as well, actually similar to yours. We're probably maybe just a step behind yours right now. But anyway, I'd like to hear from Mike on that.
Well, I mean, I'd say it's crucial. There's tons of points where, the region, and I know all the area municipalities engage the stakeholders, if you will. But what we wanted to try to do is get ahead of this a little bit, because there's an awful lot in this community, we've got a really passionate group of cyclists. And when we build facilities that don't work very well, maybe not ideal, we hear about it. So the intent with actually having engagement is not only because I'm not going to agree with David and Tom and Emily all the time about what the best facility is. We're not going to always agree, but what we can share is the design point of view. We can share what the challenges are with truck turning movements, with buses, with real safety data versus perceived safety. And we can share the successes and the failures. We can look at what other countries are doing. We can look at what other continents are doing, and we can learn from it. But we're still kind of a generation away from being Belgium, right? Our mode share is still really low, and it's going to take education. It's going to take building smart facilities, and that's where this engagement process is good. We don't have a lot of staff dedicated to this at the region. Our primary function is building roads and replacing infrastructure, and active transportation infrastructure has evolved in even my time at the region and my 13 years before that at the city of Kitchener. A bike lane used to be a line of paint on the road, and if there was a meter there, that was a bike lane, and you're lucky to have it. Times have changed, and we're trying to do something here that is change. We're trying to shift mode shares. We're trying to get more people on bikes. So design issues, maintenance issues, connectivity issues. What this is about, from my perspective, is us all talking to one another and trying to get some consistency in the nomenclature, some consistency in the design principles, you know, you guys will learn from us as designers. We will learn from you as users, and we're trying to blend the two so that we can build, you know, really the best facility, but also we're building a smart facility that can be maintained well, that can be maintained cost efficiently, that is safe. And it's a bit of a challenge in public education. So I see this hitting 4 or 5 major points. So yeah, it's important that we engage more than we've engaged in the past, and more. The reason I'm suggesting we do it in a forum that is there's regular talks about this is that you can analyze projects project by project, and we have some 150 projects every year at the region. It's a big place, and if you're doing them in a compartmentalized way, then you know, you're not communicating to the cycling community effectively. You're communicating to them piecemeal. So, you know, we're trying to do both, and we're trying to listen to not only the stakeholders that are adjacent to the facilities we're building and the businesses, but we're also trying to listen to the passionate cyclists. So, you know, we're not always going to agree, but what we do need to do is talk and learn from each other. So that to me is the biggest advantage in there. And, you know, and to have complete transparency. We're not at the region, we're not trying to hide what we're spending. We're not trying to do any of that. We're trying to be, you know, as transparent as possible and as honest as possible about the challenges we have. You know, we're in a pretty fiscally tight environment right now with COVID. We have a lot of financial challenges, and, you know, we still want to build the right facilities. I equate it to this. We're no longer building those, you know, those 4-lane roads that have, you know, a meter and a half of a cycling lane and sidewalk and no landscaping. We're not building those types of facilities. Those sort of Yugo, if you were to use a car analogy, a Yugo. We're now building Ferraris. Every corridor now, when it's rebuilt, it has more. There's much more to it. There's more landscaping. There's more infrastructure with the cycling facility itself. There's more stuff underground. There's more cars driving on it. There's more cyclists, more pedestrians. So it's challenging, and we need to talk about all the issues.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Mike, for the question. And we'll move on to another Mike. Mike Morris, you had a question?
Thanks, David. Can you hear me okay? My connection's been kind of mixed.
No, that's good.
Okay, I'll be super brief. It's really just a comment about having both the cities and the region here. When we were working on climate action WR like 10 years ago, the dynamic was often that we'd have the region saying things about the cities without the cities in the room that wasn't necessarily very positive, and the other way around also. And it just made everything so difficult navigating those relationships. And so when I think about things like the cycling grid that Kitchener just got approved, and the need to work on Duke, for example, just having you all in the same room and understand the connections between you and seeming like there's good working relationships there is encouraging for me as a cyclist, and for others I speak with that are hoping for better connectivity. And so, yeah, just to appreciate the sense of collaboration between the region and the cities. It just seems really important. So thanks.
Thanks, Mike. I would second those comments. You know, whether you love or hate the 2-tier structure for our municipalities, you know, transportation responsibility is split between the 2 levels. So and I think in the past, perhaps active transportation has taken a hit as a result. So I think it's great that we've got folks working together, and indeed inviting us as advocates into the room too. Next question. I haven't seen anyone with their hand raised. Well, with that, perhaps I'll say it is getting late, and obviously overtime, given our rough beginning. but thank you everyone for showing up, and thank you particularly to our panelists from the region and from the cities. And I think this is the beginning of more of this kind of public collaboration. So you can look forward to more like this. Hopefully, we'll have figured out all the vagaries of Zoom, and we won't have any nasty beginnings like we did tonight. So I do apologize for that. So once again, thank you everyone, and we'll see you out on the roads and trails, and especially on all the new infrastructure that we can experience that's been built in the last year and that's coming in the coming year. One of those that I'm really looking forward to is the Victoria Street Mutt. That's a huge new addition. So farewell, take care everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.